Welcome to the Thriving Farmers Podcast, where our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable and sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. So today's podcast guest is Rachel Yeats, and she manages Six-Toed Fox Organics, a newly established 3-acre certified organic market garden in the Bay of Plenty, New Zealand, growing a diverse range of crops and cut flowers for direct retail at the farmer's market and through an online store, and specializing in greens and herbs for wholesale. Rachel is passionate about lean and holistic management and applying ecological and equitable practices on her farm to ensure a sustainable, resilient, triple bottom line output in a 4-season context. Six-Toed Fox Organics has quickly become a leader in the New Zealand organic greens market, and Rachel emphasizes the importance of building relationships with customers at both a personal and commercial level, accompanied by a quality product, as well as attracting and retaining a passionate crew to build a successful and skilled team with longevity. Rachel uses a permaculture lens to design and manage the farm and its team. You won't find any herb spirals or swales, but everything is carefully planned and monitored with a whole systems approach, including the finances, starting with an abundance mindset of we can, if, to find creative solutions to every problem. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Rachel, and she's one of our Small Farm U members. And so it's fascinating talking to people who are in the Small Farm U on a long form format like this. And, sometimes we see them at conferences, but this was a really great experience to get to know Rachel and about their farm better and just how they've managed their farm. Now, one of the cool things about Rachel's farm is they moved their farm while growing to a new location many miles away. I think it was like 15 miles away. And again, that wasn't easy. So we talk about the challenges of that, how they made that work, and just how they manage running a multiple acre market garden and keeping a full crew employed year round in New Zealand. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so why don't you give us a few more details on your farm and a little bit of your background in starting the farm?
Yeah, sure. So we're just coming up into our 3rd summer growing season now, although it's been raining for the last 10 days, so it doesn't really feel like summer. We've just moved this year, so we've been for the last 4, coming up 5 months on our new farm, which is a 6-acre property. The previous 2 years, we've been leasing a 1-acre section that was continually having issues with flooding. And so it was a really good test plot for us, but the flooding kept eating into any profits that we had. So it was imperative for us to find a new permanent farm. So we've had a pretty crazy year shifting everything up to the new farm while still running the other farm. We're in New Zealand, obviously. It's quite a small country. Our population here is 4.8 million. So that's about the same size as population-wise as Alabama. The country itself is about the same size as Colorado. Temperate climate, we farm all 4 seasons. Hardiness zone is kind of a 10A, although it's not as easy to apply them here as it is to what you guys are used to. And yeah, we farm 4 seasons, so we had to transition the farm while we were running the last one. And that was probably the trickiest process, is trying to start one farm up while you're still running another one through the winter and a whole team there. But we're here at our new farm full time now. We've got 3 acres in production. We've currently got 315 23-meter beds. We'll have 400 by the end of the summer, and still working on finishing off all our high tunnels. And yeah, we're heading into summer, so about to hit peak production. We grow largely salad greens and herbs and leafy greens, but we do grow, a full spectrum of veggies. There's not a lot that we don't grow. Our majority market is wholesale, which is mainly bagged salad and single greens to organic retail stores within region. And the rest kind of goes through the farmers market and through veggie box schemes. CSAs aren't really a thing here in New Zealand. There are 2, but it's not in the whole country. There's 2 CSAs, so it's not really a big thing here. So any diversity of stuff that we have goes to the farmers markets, and the farmers markets that we have here are a little different to what's common in the United States as well. They're quite bourgeois, high market type ones and lower turnover, but we do have a pretty dedicated following after 3 years, so we can churn quite a few quite a lot of product through the farmers market.
Cool. So tell me a little bit more about moving the farm, because that sounds like a major undertaking, and I know you've pulled it off successfully. You're here still living to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not huddling in a corner crying to myself today. Yeah, so we've been on the lookout for new properties. We're in a really affluent area, which meant that, it's the same. We have the same issues with land access here that you guys do. Finding a piece of land that was affordable was really, really difficult. And we had initially wanted to just take on another lease, and that was extremely difficult because we're in a housing market that is still skyrocketing, and nobody was wanting to offer, a 5 to 10 year lease on a piece of land that might double in value within that time. It's a cash asset to them, and they need to be able to liquidate quickly if that's where they're storing their money. So we could understand that, but we also needed security of what we're doing for the long-term aims of our farm. And we've had a very clear picture for the last 5 years of exactly what we were working towards and what that would look like. And then the property that we're on just kind of popped up for auction after watching properties for the last 3 years, and it ticked, I think, every box except like 2, and that was the closest anything had got in the long run. It had just had this we've got this little 80 square meter house on it and a couple of outbuildings, and that's what actually made it kind of become pushed into our price bracket, is that it had a dwelling, we could live on the farm, but it wasn't a really expensive fancy one, so that wasn't going to be hugely overvalued. As it is, it's still a very big mortgage that we're looking at. Yeah, I try not to think about that one too much, but it will, it's given us the security, and it's what we had to do and commit to. So we found an angel investor a couple of weeks before the auction to buy the property for us, because the issues that we had at our last farm is that we were running it okay finance-wise, but we're looking at kind of 3 or 4 floods a year that were taking out obviously a huge margin. So while we're having enough to pay our staff and keep the business running sustainably and have an income for us, there's no fat left at the end of the day to be able to take to the bank and say,
Gotcha.
Hey, look, we're making all this money so we can justify buying this really expensive property. So we found an amazing woman to buy the property for us for a short term while we could find some other private investors to have a long-term mortgage with. She was kind of just a placeholder working through that process now. So the property, our name should be on the title by the end of January. We've got a couple of private investors to give us a private mortgage. And then hopefully within another 2 years, we'll be able to refinance that with the bank. So everything kind of just fell into place. But it was a very intense fall and winter for us of just this suddenly happening. And you had to grab the opportunities when they come to you. We were somewhat prepared because we had been looking for a while as far as documents and cash flow forecasts and being able to look attractive to an investor.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too much work on that side, but it was still like, well, we either have to do this or not do this and do something else, and this is perfect, so why don't we just do it? But then just continuing to run the other farm through the winter while we're doing all the crop planning and locking in all the sales, because obviously jumping from 1 acre to putting 3 acres into production this year. Originally we'd intended to grow that a little bit more organically over time. But then what happened is we had another opportunity come to us. A really big player in the organic salad market sold up in the middle of winter, and we were kind of just waiting there. We built quite a few customer relationships in our wholesale and retail outlets, and we were, the people that they shoulder tapped. So that gave us the opportunity to then make those supply agreements and be able to get some extra financing to scale up to meet those agreements, knowing that those were solid and that was product that was sold. Because that's one thing, is like, I don't grow anything unless I think I can sell it. I don't just grow stuff and go, hopefully that will shift at the farmer's market, or hopefully people will be happy to have that in their veggie box and not complain. I've got to know that I've got somewhere to sell it. And I do that with all my customers every winter as I sit down with them when it's their quiet season, when we do the forecasting for the year. So I'm growing to what they expect their demand to be. So it was a practice that I'd already got into that was easy to scale up for larger demands.
Very interesting. So then how far apart were the 2 properties?
About half an hour's drive.
Okay.
We weren't living on the other property, so we shifted out here straight away, so that at least, after hours and weekends, we could just, I say chip away, but really it was, hustle.
Yes.
And just to get, mainly we needed to get, all the beds prepped, but then also our packing shed up and running so that we could, at least while we're still harvesting from the other farm, harvest there and then bring it up here to be processed and dispatched. That was all finished by the end of October. So we've been up here full time from the end of October, and we only had we pretty much stopped planting at the old farm because, in New Zealand we still continue to plant all through winter. And so we stopped planting there and started planting here. So kind of end of October, we were ready to start harvesting here. And it all went by so fast with such little sleep. And we've got 3 small children as well. So, shift schools for them and, do all that stuff with getting them settled into a new community. So it feels like it went by in a blink of an eye, but it was an intense period of time.
Yes, I can imagine. So, okay, so you farm with 3 kids. How do you balance that? I mean, obviously, recently you've really had to focus on transitioning the farm, but in general, how do you balance with the kids and having the farm?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, and some days you do it better than others. Our kids are 7, 5, and 3. Our eldest goes to school, and it's 15 minutes away from us, so that's not too bad. And she used to love the farm, and she's not so keen on it now. She just wants to read books and do other stuff. But the boys are here most of the time because we're both pretty much working full-time or full-time equivalent. We've hired a nanny for 3 days a week, and that was definitely one of the best decisions that we made. Yeah. Just to have somebody there, we take students from the Polytech, organic horticulture students from the Polytech. That was one of our students that we had last year that finished up with us. He had a small 2-year-old, and so we offered him the position as the nanny. And that's, as well as that, he does cooking for the crew, and the kids look after the kitchen garden together. So it's not just kind of looking after kids all day, and was continuing to give him some work that he was interested in. It's worked out really well. It's so nice to just have the kids still around and still part of that process of the farm, but being able to have somebody 3 days a week where the kids are his responsibility. If they come and ask me stuff, I'm like, just go talk to Arno, he's in charge.
Yes.
And it works well. It works well for everybody. But we've also got really lovely staff. We've got 2 staff that live on site, and they get on amazingly well with the kids. And I think that has been really key, is just kind of building that workplace community so the kids are part of it rather than employees that's on the site. And I think I see kind of people like Ray Tyler really managing to pull that one off really well also.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. And back when I was running my farm, I was, single guy at the time for most of my time running the farm. And so, I just didn't have those responsibilities. So I could work my evenings. I could work, I've thought about that as we, eventually we'd love to be back having a farm. Just thinking about that, as we have kids, thinking about how are we going to manage that, making sure that we're incredibly intentional and making sure that we're planning really well so that we're very efficient on the farm, so we can have those family times as well.
Yeah, totally. And it's crazy how much more productive you can actually be with your time when you do have kids. And when you prioritize those blocks of time to spend with them, you're like, well, I had to achieve this much work in order to do that thing that is really special and precious to me. And definitely through the winter while we're transitioning, it was really, really difficult, and they did probably get a little neglected sometimes. But we talked to them a lot about that and about how this is going to be 3 or 4 months really hard graft so that we could actually be more fully present and less stressed than we were at the previous farm. We were all worrying about it going underwater every time there was the slightest little bit of rain.
Yeah, that is incredibly tough. So let's talk about your type of farming. So I think you do no-till / deeper organic. Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so we're certified organic. We're in New Zealand, we call it under conversion rather than in transition. So we're C2, so this September next year we'll be fully certified. We were able to carry that certification over to our new property. Our certifiers allowed us to do that, so that was really fantastic that we didn't have to start from scratch here. But the soil was in really good condition, and all our residue tests came back, absolutely negative. So we didn't have any issues there. And that was one of the reasons why this was the ideal property, is it had just been completely neglected for 10 years and nobody had bothered to spray anything on it, let alone intentionally sprayed anything on it. So we kind of do the permanent biointensive bed type thing. We do have a tractor, and this has been our first year, and we haven't had that benefit of time of being able to just, put tarps down for 6 months and let the sod do its thing. So we have had to do an initial deep till
Yep.
After that, we generally don't do a lot of tillage. We use a lot of landscape fabric for our long-term crops, and we rotate those with short-term crops. And we do have a rototiller that we've had, Brad has customized it so it makes a bed former. So it's kind of only tilting kind of a credit card depth of the top of the soil just to get that tilt there to be able to direct seed into that. Yep. We've got an insane amount of weed pressure here, and especially from it being neglected pasture, it's all lots of really horrible weeds like thistles and stuff, which is not fun to have in your salad mix.
Yes.
But we know that's a short-term problem, and all our customers have been very, very understanding about that, which I'm really, really grateful for, because it's not nice being pricked in the mouth by a thistle when you're just trying to enjoy your salad.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. But it sounds like you have enough acreage that you can do the rotation so that you'll be able to get rid of those weeds quickly. Yeah,
that's the plan. And we're already seeing them diminishing a lot. And we bought a flame weeder that arrived about 6 weeks ago, and that's already been making a huge difference to the amount of weed pressure that we're seeing coming through those salad beds. So that's awesome. Been a really, really good investment this year.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk a little about sustainability on the farm. What does a sustainable farm mean to you?
I saw that question. I was like, I hate that word. Brad and I are kind of environmentalists and permaculturists from way back, and sustainable is kind of just like one of those marketing terms that we see thrown around like free range that doesn't really mean anything.
Yep.
But I mean, for us, sustainability is, any sort of system where the resource inputs that you need to come in order to get your resource outputs able to be sustainably met. And we try and do that in our farm as much as possible. We source all our products as locally as possible. It is really difficult being in New Zealand and being a really isolated country with a really small population. We don't have those economies of scale for tool production. And if a tool breaks and we've imported it, we're kind of a little bit stuck. So we kind of always have to import 2 of everything whenever we just want one of them. Like we have 2 greens harvesters, and just if you're left hanging high and dry without an important tool, there's no shop a few states away that will be able to deliver that to you overnight. Yeah. So we have to be really conscious of that. One of the biggest sustainability issues for me with New Zealand is our seed supply. 98% of the seed in our country comes from overseas. We do export a lot of seed, but it's really specific crops. Like we export a lot of carrots and a lot of parsnips. We don't have seed growers for a very wide range of things here at all. So that's a real difficulty for us. So I wouldn't say that we're sustainable from that aspect, but we do try our best to make sure that we're getting stuff that can't be affected by disruption. And that includes your staff. We're really careful about our staff and setting up sustainable teams, having meaningful work for them with reasonable pay, and creating jobs in our workforce that are long-term ones if that's the opportunity that particular person wants. Because we see that we sink so much time into teaching our teams these skills and this expertise, and we want it to stay on our farm and not go somewhere else. And we don't want the pay here to be so low that they just go and do something else with their lives. If they love farming, if they love growing, we want to be able to provide them with a place to do what they love and do that with us.
Yep. No, that's true. And I really think that sustainability word is such a broad term. I think we all yearn for that, but I don't think I see any farms that are truly sustainable. And I think that's always one of those things that we're all striving for and seeing how we can make our farm more.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're ever going to get there.
Yeah. And it had to be looking at some pretty, drastic climate change consequences and global localism and things like that to really actually make farms sustainable in our current economic climate. And I think it's something that everybody will probably slowly work more and more towards, whether they intend to or not, just because of the consequences of a lot of the effects of climate change are having on us. We certainly notice a huge amount where we are in New Zealand. Climate change has really large effects on our weather patterns down here. They're very volatile, and they're changing the way that a lot of the farmers and growers in New Zealand are doing their production.
Yeah, I see that happening. I mean, even in the Northeast, I keep seeing those 100-year floods coming every couple of years.
Yeah, and that flood-prone block that we had before, that had been used for horticulture for the last 30 years. We did all our homework before we took the lease on the block, and then it was just it was 2 meters above sea level, and the sea level had risen, and there was just nothing stopping it every time it rained, as well as a lot of more built up development in the area that was kind of diverting water to us. So it was, a mixture of things. So that's the way it's going.
Yeah. So as a farmer, there are endless tasks to be done. How do you make sure to focus and tackle your most vital priorities each day?
I've tried a lot of different planners and things, but I find for myself that the best thing I can do every day is get my coffee, sit down at my computer, and just write a really massive list.
Okay.
And like I said, I've tried so many different proper journals and planners and templates online, but for me, just to have everything that's in my head, blast it out onto a piece of paper, and then I can, arrange my priorities as the day goes. And I know it sounds so simplest and ridiculous in its simplicity, but that's how it works for me. For the team, it's a little bit different. We have a variety of strategies that we use. The main one is we have a really big whiteboard that's divided up into kind of the essential areas of the farm and the days of the week, and then we all go through together, just in case Brad and I might have missed something, of what all the essential tasks are in each of those areas. And then we allocate them to the week, knowing where all our, our harvest pressure and stuff is that we can work around, and looking at the weather forecast for the week and prioritizing where the outdoor jobs need to go if it's raining. And then each of those tasks then gets assigned to one of our team members to lead that. And we revisit that every day just to make sure it's working. And if we get all the jobs done quickly throughout the day, then we can reschedule some and hand them over. And there's obviously always that job list there of what can be done at any time if you've finished your work. Weeding mainly.
Yes.
Some weeding, Sarah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, hopefully that will change.
Yeah.
So we stand on the shoulders of giants, those who have gone before us in the agricultural community. Tell us about the most influential lesson you've learned from, one of your mentors or one of the people that you've learned farming from, and how that's helped you become a farmer you are today.
I think it's really tricky to pick one. We do quite a lot of research in what we do, and I think it's a lot easier to borrow tips and tricks from lots of various different people and take what works and leave the rest than to pick one really influential person. I think, to be honest, we've probably learned a lot more about what not to do. That's really struck home from, if we're looking at any particular person or organisation, and just in our work experience kind of before our farm. And that was one of the things that really stuck out about treating people well, treating your workforce well, being really key, is both in the horticulture industry and also in the kind of permaculture movement. While it's got that people care part there, often a lot of people just ignore that because they focus on the earth care, and all those ethics really need to be kept in balance. If you focus fully on one, so one of the other two is going to be let down. For us, that's been our biggest thing, is really looking at a way to treat our teams well, because we've been seeing it done really, really badly. And that was a huge impetus for us wanting to even start our farm, is that Brad has been working in horticulture and agriculture since he left school 25 years ago, and every single workforce he's ever been in, it's just, the management has been terrible. The employees have been given minimum wage, even those like him that, work their way up through management levels. It's not, you're not looking at huge pay jumps there or huge respect jumps either. And I was sick of him working in places where he just was never happy. There's a way to do what you love and also love where you do it. So that's kind of what we've been striving for, is to not have these bad examples of how to do things be the way that we do things, and reject that and show a different way of doing it.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I definitely know part of my career has been working for other people, and every single time, yes, there's that list of what not to do that you learn.
Yeah, I was also really lucky before we started the farm, and we knew we were having kids, so we kind of waited to kind of have the children before we started our own business, because we had the wisdom enough to see that was not something to just jump into when you had really, really small children, or we're still trying to build your family. I did a lot of part-time work in between, and one company that I work for called Ubi, they've got one in Fresno, but it's a New Zealand company. And I was working with they do veggie boxes, kind of like aggregate CSA kind of thing.
Yep.
So I was working in their marketing here, and just the way that they had structured the management in the company. And it was the first place I'd ever worked for where people had just kind of given me my job description and go, we have faith that you will do this well, so just go for it and spread your wings. And that was so empowering as an employee to just have somebody go, I know you can do this, so do it. And not just be constantly writing you or checking you or going, this is how we want it done, but just giving you the expected outcomes and going, as long as you're doing that, you're doing a great job, so just keep it at us. So I just kind of really took that on board as how that made me feel as an employee, as a way that I could make my employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as agricultural type stuff, probably our biggest influence on how we really do stuff on the farm is, Savory's work with holistic management, and how we apply that to, how we set up the farm, and what our statement of purpose is something we've always got to go back to. And we use the testing questions every day, every decision that we make, not necessarily consciously anymore, although we do have them all printed out in the workroom so that, for when we have breaks, if we talking with the staff about stuff, we can, run them through the testing questions to see how we make our decisions and how they could make their decisions. But for us, it's so kind of embedded now. It's not like we consciously look at those testing questions every time, but they've become part of how we do what we do.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. If there was a magic reset button as it relates to starting your farm, what systems would you go back and put into place sooner rather than later?
All of them. No, I fantasize often about how wonderful it would be to just be able to freeze time for a month so that we could finish getting all our infrastructure and finish getting all our standard operating procedures and everything done, and often look so jealously at you guys or the farmers in the States that get, a whole winter off just to do their crop planning and stuff. Like, to be able to do your crop planning when you're not actively working would just be such a luxury. But as far as, we've obviously, to go from the size we were to the size we are now, we've had to scale up the team considerably, and just not having enough time to be as prepared for them to empower them to do their job well has been a little bit frustrating. You have to be a little kind on yourself because you can't do everything. But if I had to pick a couple of priorities, it would be just to have had all their checklists in place.
Yes.
And all their expectations around how long it will take to harvest, how long it takes to transplant a bed. And that's something that we're really working through actively now, especially when we have this team of really enthusiastic people, but they've got different motivations and passions, and they're driven by different things. And we have some that are just, hell for leather. They just got so much passion, and they're just trying to drive everybody to work at that same speed. And it's amazing, but it doesn't work for people that actually can't get to or maintain that speed. So being able to set those clear expectations for the whole team, or like, this should take you 15 minutes. Or you can harvest that much in an hour and you've only got this much to do, so that should actually only take you half an hour. And so for those people that are really just digging straight into it, it gives them a license to go, actually, I don't have to drive everybody as hard as I work, because Rachel and Brad are happy with it being done this way. And then for the others that are more kind of at the slower end of the continuum, it's, a visual reminder for them that actually I do need to pick up the pace a little bit, and it's not just somebody else nagging me. This is the expectation for the day. We also set a deadline for the packing shed, and that has changed hugely. So the deadline changes every day depending on the size of the harvest, and that's been really awesome for the packing manager to be confident and telling the crew that she's managing in there, look, today we do need to finish at 11:30, so you are going to need a hustle. Or actually, guys, we've got an hour left before deadline and we are totally on target, so just keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, gotcha. No, that's really good. So you farm with Brad, who's your husband. How do you divide roles on the farm? How does it work farming with a partner?
It works well farming with a partner. And Brad and I have had a business together before, a non-farming business. So we were able to work through a lot of that kind of tension that can come with figuring out your roles together back then. And not that it's always easy, but we do have very defined roles on the farm, and I don't actually do very much field work at all. And that's for very good reason. I am a pottery type gardener. I will quite happily spend my Sunday pricking out tomatoes and listening to podcasts, but I'm not much fun to have on the team. I get too easily distracted by shiny things.
Okay.
And, yeah. and I think, having that self-awareness of knowing how you work best and what the skills and experience that you have that you bring to the table are. So Brad is, I guess his official title is the farm manager. He manages everything outside. He manages the team, and he just makes sure everything gets done the way that it's supposed to be done. And he does the managing by walking around, checking in on the packing manager and the harvest manager and the field manager and just monitoring that nothing's been missed. And for me, I do all the business management side of things. So that's doing all the, the customer services, the chief financial officer type stuff, but also doing all the crop planning and everything like that. So anything that can and has to be done in the office mainly gets done by me. Not that I pull Brad in kicking and screaming sometimes to do some paperwork. But for the most part, I take over that stuff. And we knew that we had to have one person that the buck stops with, just for the team, so that they know that when there is a final decision, that is the final decision, and that person on the farm is me. And so I get to be the bad guy sometimes, and I think that works really. Not that I want to be the bad guy or enjoy being the bad guy, but it's good to have the person that's managing the team not necessarily be the one that is the bad guy. Yeah. And I say that, but, we have a really good team in it, and there's not really any bad guy stuff that happens. But sometimes people have ideas and you give them a go and they don't work, or they don't work as well as what you do, or they have some bad flow-on effects that you don't necessarily want. So it could have been a good idea, but we're not going to use it at this time.
Yeah. So then you can be that bad person which saying, okay, we are going to use the original time.
And I have to do the hiring and the firing and all that stuff, and setting up all the standard operating procedures and
So how big is your team now?
We have 3 full-time staff, 2 other full-time equivalent positions.
Okay.
And then we have a couple of part-timers, and we have 2 students from the Polytech who do a day a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's
quite busy here. Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. But because we're doing such a large amount of salads, you know how quickly you can get that through the farm. So, it's very different doing 3 acres of salad mix compared to 3 acres of potatoes.
Yes. Yeah. So with the salad, is all that on landscape fabric, transplanted and then harvested one time, or do you get 2 carts out of that?
For the lettuce, we normally get about 4 cuts. We've tried quite a lot of different lettuce varieties, including the Salanova. I know it's huge over there. Salanova is ridiculously expensive and difficult for us to get here. So we've actually settled on a couple of varieties that are from Syngenta, I think.
Yep.
They're readily available for us year-round. They're held here by a seed company. They don't have quite the same yield as, say, the Telex Salanova had for us, but that to be able to have that consistency of supply and not all that time stuffing around with admin, that's more worthwhile for us. So we're planning into that. Our beds are 80 centimetres, so they're just slightly wider than the 30-inch raised beds that you guys are used to. And we plan into landscape fabric, and we normally get about 4 cuts off the lettuces, depending on the time of the year. The baby leaf greens, we're just direct seeding with the jang. Next year's upgrade is to get a 3-row jang.
Yep.
And it depends on the time of the year how many cuts and the crop that we get off those. The rocket, we generally only get 1. Things like baby kale, we can sometimes get 3 or 4. We have a Mizuna and a tatsoi mix that we'll sometimes get on a really nice crop, can get up to 6 cuts off that. So that becomes quite pretty good value for money, that one.
Yeah, so while you're saying, I hate farming year-round, we're saying, man, you can farm year-round.
And it'd be nice if I could both farm year-round and have a break.
Yes.
Obviously, we definitely pencil in the middle of winter, pen in, block out a 3-week break for us to take as a family, because otherwise it's too easy to work through. There's always stuff that needs to be done. But the farm, this year we shut down because we had a really bad flood, so that wiped out all our crops in the middle of winter. So that was actually pretty good timing. We were shutting down anyway, but we hadn't intended to. We had intended just to take our time off and leave the team to keep things ticking over.
Yeah. But I think, after this farm transition happens finally, and you start, I think you give yourself another year, 18 months, and I think things will really start to hum.
Oh, yeah, totally. And scaling up that workforce, we've got, at least 4 people on any given day that are new to us, new to here. And there's only, you're trying to train all of them, and with your existing employees, trying to train them also. And you can't be everywhere at once, teaching them everything. So it's about just being gentle on yourself and gentle on them while you work with them to get up to that, and gentle on the farm and gentle on our soil, because it's not where we want it to be, and we're not getting the quality of product that we were from the last farm yet, just because we haven't had enough time to pump in enough organic matter and get all that microbial activity up high. But it's holding that vision and knowing that you are working towards it, and that it will happen. Yeah.
All right. What is the biggest mistake that you see beginning farmers making?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I feel like it's a little bit hard for me to be judgmental. Sometimes we're only coming into our 3rd summer season, and Braid's got a lot of experience, but this is a different model that New Zealand isn't really used to either. So we're trying out a lot of new things. I think probably one of the key things that I see, and I know it is really hard in your first year of farming, you kind of just got to grow stuff and figure out what people want to buy that first year. But from the second year, you really do need to be just nailing down growing exactly what you can sell. And I think that's what I see as people just still growing what they want, to have a diversity of crops, or to stick to their values of not having monocultures. And I think sometimes you need to go a little bit more indirectly to reach your values. And so that's what I see as a lot of people just having stuff that they grow that they can't sell. And that kind of saddens me a lot.
Yes.
It's not that difficult once you kind of get over the anxiety of the situation of asking people what they want to commit to buying from you. And that kind of, it sets a really good playing field when you've got that to take back to that customer, say, hey, you told me that you take these cucumbers and I've grown them for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be this, signed and sealed supply agreement, but just having an understanding with the people that are your customers of what you're growing for them, and that you've made the effort to figure it out. And the other thing that I do see, and I largely see this from growers that don't have children yet, is spending a lot of time on stuff that is working to a different audience that's not your customer, or just isn't actually giving any real benefit to your farm or to your customer who should be getting value from you. And I guess one example of that is probably some farmers that I see starting out, and they get into like vlogging and stuff. And that's like, it's cool as another farmer to watch someone's vlog.
Yes.
But when you're a starting out farm, your customers aren't going to be watching your vlog, and they don't really care about all those little nitty gritty things about loading seeds and stuff. They're happy to see a photo of it on Instagram and look a peek behind the curtain a little bit. Yeah, just big difference between spending 10 minutes doing an Instagram post and then half an hour a day doing a vlog, when you could have spent that half an hour doing something that would have been so much more beneficial to your farm and to your customers. That's probably the 2 key things.
Yeah, no, those are incredibly key things. And to your first one, I see that happening all the time. I see that. And I think what you said there was key was you may have to take a roundabout way to your end goals. And at the beginning, I see so many farmers, okay, I'm not going to use any sprays at all, period, ever. Then that first year, they're completely decimated by armyworms. They have no crop. And and what I would say is, okay, it's great to go to that, but your soil isn't there yet. Your soil has to get there, and the way to soil to get there is for you to make enough money, put enough amendments on that soil so you can get that soil to that microbial state that it's going to be able to resist the armyworms.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
And then to your second point on, start doing that blogging and the stuff that's not bringing customer value, that's all great. But, we teach the 5 stages of farming. You do dreamer, beginner, traction, experienced, and expert. And to me, the people that should be having those farming blogs are the people that are in the experienced and expert stages, who are A, qualified to share that, and B, again, have more time because their farmers are already working well for them. So those were 2 really good points you brought up.
Yeah. And like I said, as a new farm that's trying something that's quite new in a country that's not really used to it, it is really nice to see these blogs and stories from other farmers that are in the same position. It's nice to have something that resonates. But,
Yes.
you know, for me, that's the clear-cut reason why we don't do it, is that it doesn't offer value to myself and it doesn't offer value to my customers. And if it's not doing either of those two things, it's not worthy of my time right now.
That's great. So one challenge that many farmers face is finding, hiring, and keeping great teams. You seem to have built a good team. So what strategies you implemented to bring on the right kind of team members?
We had a dedicated strategy. We've always considered that any marketing that we do is marketing to our potential workforce as well as to our potential customers.
Okay.
But that's just kind of coming through in the way that we do things. And we have a lot of, New Zealand's a small country, so there's a lot of word of mouth. You can't really keep a lot to yourself, and people have been talking about what we've been doing for a little while. And there's some other really cool farms in New Zealand too that are doing similar things, and everybody's talking about them also. So it's not hard to get the word out there that you exist and you're a good place to be. This year, because we had to scale up so quickly and add so many new team members, was the first time we really did have to advertise. And that was just one really quick post on Facebook Jobs that got enough word out there that we were looking. And for us, it's more important to have people that are passionate than people that are experienced. And by passionate, we mean driven to do the work, not necessarily the ideals of it. There's quite a large permaculture movement in New Zealand, and we borrow and use and teach permaculture stuff, but it can often be a little bit airy-fairy, the stuff that comes with it, especially from the ideals and values side of things. And when you've got a production farm, and we do use, like I said, we do use permaculture, we use it in how we run the business, but you're not going to walk out there and see a herb spiral or anything like that. This is a production farm, so we use the permaculture principles in the way that we do things, but it doesn't look permaculture.
Gotcha.
Anybody that's wanting to join our team that thinks it should be looking like permaculture, this is not the right place for them.
Gotcha. That's good. So let's talk about your marketing. We've kind of touched on it here and there. What are the main marketing focuses for your farm? It seems like wholesale and some farmers markets.
Do you mean like marketing as in what you publish, or just kind of where you sell?
Okay, so well, that's a great distinction, because obviously there's one aspect of you got to promote yourself, but then the other aspect of, what channels you're actually selling your product into. So, yeah.
As far as promotions go, we use Instagram.
Yep.
That's probably pretty much the core of it, and then link that with Facebook if it seems on Facebook. I've worked in social media and marketing before, so I have a general awareness of what's Facebook appropriate and what's not, and what works on most channels. But I think that Instagram is an easy one. The team can post stuff up on Instagram stories without me having to do anything, and I just try and make sure that there's regular kind of, it's a looking behind the curtain type thing when you're using Instagram for marketing, and your customers enjoy being part of your story. As far as, as where we sell the farmers market, we do that year round. It's pretty quiet in winter, but then it's kind of probably about 6 times the volume over summer. The region that we are farming in is quite a high tourist destination. So we do get a lot of summer foot traffic, and that works well for us. But the core of our business is selling bag products and large leafy greens, either direct to stores. We've got 3 organic stores within our area, and then we also ship them up to Auckland, which is a 2.5-hour drive. We use a logistics company for that, and there's quite a lot of organic stores up there. So we deal with the 2 main distributors up there, and they do, obviously from the promotion side, they kind of cross-market, and we try and make sure that we work in with their marketing teams and stuff. We've got a promo coming up just before Christmas that they're doing in store, as long as we have enough product, because, like I said, it's been raining for 10 days, and it's not looking great out there at the moment.
Yeah, that is really cool. So with the wholesale and that aspect, how did you build that? Word of mouth, just going to them directly and knocking on the door? Yeah,
pretty much. Like, if I had to give any advice to anybody about to start a vertically integrated business like a farm, where you're manufacturing and you're distributing and you're dealing directly with your retail customers, is to read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, because it's such a simple book, and those concepts are so simple, but once you hold them, it changes every interaction that you have with people. And that was just from the very get-go. That was my intent, was to build a relationship, not sales. And through building relationships, I have built sales. that is the key, to be a person who is really easy to deal with, who communicates first. Like if I have a complaint about a product from one customer, the first thing I will do after I've solved that person's problem is to contact everybody else that got their product that day to check if they have a problem too. So go to them first before they come to you. And just being a really good human being.
Yes.
Treating other people how you expect to be treated. And I think I'm not even sure who this came from. It might have been Tim Ferriss. But if you can solve somebody's problem for less than $100, then do it.
Yes, that is a Tim Ferriss. Yes.
Yeah, It doesn't matter what it is. It's just so simple. It's like you could create so many more problems down the line by just being a stick in the mud and going, well, actually that product was fine and there's nothing wrong with it and you don't deserve a credit. Just give them the credit and they'll be stoked and they'll come back. Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's great advice. That's really good advice. All right, so let's kind of start to wrap this up here. Imagine you're standing in front of future farmers, people just like yourself who are thinking of starting this. What 2 or 3 strategies would you recommend they focus on to ensure their success at the beginning?
Ooh, strategies. I think it's more, for me, mindset.
Okay.
Having that abundance mindset, dare greatly, fall hard, rise strong. I think there's Brené Brown that says that. There's no job in the world that presents you with quite as many failures as farming does. Just, constantly. You're failing on something, your crop is failing, something else is going wrong. It's just, there's so many facets to what you're doing. And every time you fail, you should be learning something and just picking yourself back up and going, cool, I know that now and that's not going to happen again. Or I know that now and I'm going to try to do this next time to stop it from happening again. So you're just having that mindset of being able to pick yourself up and that you'll find the resources that you need. Like when I think about how we managed to get onto this property this year, it would have been so easy to go, oh no, we can't do that. We don't have the money. We can't get a loan for that. But instead it was, having that abundance mindset going, we can do that. And that's something we say to our team and to each other. Brad and I remind ourselves of it constantly, rephrase that, reframe that. We can do that if. And sometimes the if still needs to have a we can do that if attached to. It's kind of like, the 5 whys of lean. You sometimes have to work through a few different aspects. But that would probably be it. And the other thing, and it kind of goes back to that Dale Carnegie stuff too, is remember that everybody that you encounter is trying their best for the most part. So even if you're having a bad or a negative experience with somebody, whether that's a customer or an employee or another farmer, just keeping in mind that in their heart, they're trying to do what's best. And that can really change the way that you deal with people, I think. And also how that situation deals with you. Yeah. I find it very easy to get anxious about things because I'm always worried everything to go really well for everybody. And it can't always go really well for everybody. But knowing that everybody intends it to makes it a lot easier to deal with when things don't go well.
No, that's really good stuff to think about. I think that so often is forgotten. People think, oh, if I just grow the right crop or if I just, find the right farmer's market, that's going to be the key. But so often it's, thinking that abundance. And as you said, you are going to fail. But, I think the key there too is understanding you're going to fail, but then doing a hindsight look at that failure and saying, okay, what am I going to change? Because, I think what's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different outcome every time.
Yeah.
That's really good. So if you could pick one, what would be your favorite farming tool?
I'm going to be that really annoying office farmer. And I know everybody that's listening to your podcast will want to hear about something in the field. But for us, we have this accounting package in New Zealand called Xero. And I did look up this morning to check that it is available in the USA. And it is. It's reasonably new there. But honestly, I've been working in, bookkeeping and stuff since I was 12 when I was working with my grandparents in their business. And that's what got me through uni, was doing office admin. And so I've worked with just about every bookkeeping package out there. And Xero is just absolutely amazing. The efficiency that it's brought to how we manage everything on our farm, from inventory through to invoicing and just, reconciliations and quotes. And honestly, it would probably save me about at least 6 hours a week. And that's like in my role, at least 6 hours a week. So, and that's pretty astronomical for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be able to really streamline their stuff. And it also integrates with so many other software as a service type programs and things out there. So all my extra stuff like my payroll systems and everything integrates. And in New Zealand, it's something that's been taken, because it's such amazing software at a really reasonable price. The take up on it has been huge. So most of the companies that we deal with use Xero as well, and that makes it even better because it's just so quickly able to add all your supplier invoices in, and it keeps everything pretty paperless.
So what's the URL?
It's Xero, www.xero.com. And that for us, I think it cost us $60 a month, and that's 3 hours of labor. So that's just ridiculously cheap for the amount that it saves us.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm always interested because obviously, QuickBooks is kind of the universal standard here, but it sounds like this has gone way above and beyond that for you guys.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I've worked with QuickBooks and Mind Your Own Business and so many other different ones, and it blows them out of the water, to be honest. And awesome. On the farm as a tool, it's not a tool, but just thinking lean. And like Brad was a lean consultant quite a while before we started our farm, because he's been in production management for a while and had been implementing it. So as a tool, it's not a proper tool, but it is a tool.
Yes.
And learning lean and how to implement that on your farm. And Ben Hartman's books are great at giving examples of those. Yep. But there's also lots of other resources, free ones online, on how to implement lean on your farm and how to use the 5 Ys and 5 S's, and all 6 Sigma's a really good one. So I would definitely recommend that to people to really, really look into lean.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, one of my favorite YouTube channels is, I think it's Paul Ackers with the 2-second lean.
Yeah, from FastCap.
Yes, that guy, I would love to meet him someday. He's so cool.
Yeah, he's so cool. And I love, he really breaks stuff down into really simple, understandable terms too. And he's so enthusiastic about it all. We've watched a lot of Paul at our house.
Okay. All right. So do you believe that now is the best time to start a farm? And if so, why?
Honestly, Michael, I would probably say no. It's really hard. Land access is really hard. The climate's changing. It's really hard. There's more and more regulation, and that makes it really hard. You can't just be a good grower of things to have a good farm business. You have to have a really good farm business, a really good business head. But I think if you've got that, then this is the perfect time. We're moving into the way that our culture is working, and that we can really just talk directly to our customers. This broken distribution models that we have, we can circumvent a lot of what used to be the way that things were done. And everybody is out there thinking so much more creatively about stuff. And I think as a society, we're moving towards a more collaborative and cooperative model of being, away from this kind of real neoliberal one. And I think that's something that farms are integral to. We produce food. That's the only thing that, other than water, that everybody needs every day. To be at the center of that and to show that it can be done in a really, really good way, and you can nourish your community and your earth in a really good way. This is a prime time to be getting into that. So yes and no.
That's a good answer. Yeah. Rachel, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
Hey, thanks so much, Michael.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.